All right, here we go.
AFK is. So basically, all I do is like hold down my right.
We're just trying to get all the.
All right, fair.
What are you doing? I have a meeting.
We'd like to welcome you out this evening and welcome to our second ninth grade family night. And we're thankful for everyone who has taken some time to spend some time with us. And we're going to start first by sorting out our interpretation. And we will first have our Spanish interpreter, Ms. Erickson, talk about give the instructions for when we start the interpretation to click the button in the bottom right hand along the line, along the bottom. And then after that, we will have our Russian interpreter, Anastasia Blegovich-Shenskaya, I think. And we will go from there. So Ms. Erickson. Oh, she can unmute. Hold on. I do not see her again. Then we'll go with our a Russian interpreter, Anastasia.
Okay. ¿Qué tal? Muy buenas. Okay.
Oh, I see Ruth. Thank you. Thank you, Ruth.
Yeah. Ok, bienvenidos a todos. Estamos esta noche para el 9º grado, en la noche familiar, el número 2. Bienvenidos a todos. Estamos muy contentos de recibirlos y en caso de que necesite interpretación, por favor, ponga el botón donde está el globo terráqueo, el globito en la parte de abajo en su teléfono. Si no, está la opción donde dice más o more y son 3 puntitos en la parte de abajo en un globo terráqueo para escuchar esta conversación en español. Hay interpretación y estamos aquí para servirle.
Thank you. And Anastasia.
Ага, здравствуйте всем русскоговорящим. Сегодня у нас ориентация для учеников 9 класса, для родителей. Если когда начнется перевод, вы увидите кнопку, называется Interpretation. Нажмите на эту кнопку и выберите русский язык. В таком случае вы меня услышите на русском языке. Хорошо, до свидания.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start the rooms. All right. I'd like to turn time over to Dr. Christine Baldwin.
Welcome to tonight's second family night. We're going to be talking about motivation and conferences and some information just as general reminders to help you as you're managing through comprehensive distance learning. So our agenda for this evening is to talk about the OCHS conferences. We have an amazing guest speaker, Dr. Elizabeth Davis, who will be talking to us about motivating during comprehensive distance learning. We know our students are having some ups and downs, and you are in for a wonderful treat tonight with this discussion from Dr. Davis. We'll also be talking about student support opportunities, and we'll end our session tonight with a question and answer. I believe that we'll be posting our question and answer through Surveymonkey, which will be found in the chat. So as you have questions, please feel free once the link is posted in the chat box to share your questions.
I've posted it, so it's there.
Thank you. As a reminder, for those of you who may not have had a session with us yet, we have a wonderful OCHS administration. We have Principal Carrie Wilhelm, Associate Principal Dr. Erickson, Associate Principal Toby Futch, Associate Principal Mike Stead, our Dean of Students, Lynn Barry, and our Athletic Director and Associate Principal, Andy Jones. Our counseling department and other support staff, as you see, John Lucente, Brandon Coop, Megan McBride, Teresa Kaufman, Nassine Sarimi, and Brooke Zalewski. And myself, I am the Student Success Coordinator for our building and work primarily with 9th grade students. And we have Erica Frafford, who works with our College and Career Center and coordinates programs for college and career futures. And so as you have been progressing through the last, we're halfway through week 2, you may have seen a variety of schedules. However, this schedule that you're looking at today is the comprehensive distance learning daily schedule that your students will be following from this week forward. So we had last week where there was 2 introduction days and then 2 full days. This is now what your schedule will look like. Each teacher will be posting a week at a glance, and then live sessions are happening on Monday, Tuesday. They're the same periods, period 1, 2, and early bird or late bird if your student has the early bird or late bird classes. And then on Tuesday and Friday, you'll have periods 3, 4, and 5. However, during this day, every day, your student will be working through all of your periods 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So periods, depending on the day of the live session, the asynchronous experience will also be happening at the same time that the periods 1 and 2 or 3, 4, and 5 are meeting. If your student cannot attend class for whatever the reason may be, whether it's the live class or a full day of asynchronous classes, you do need to contact Holly Stone, and there is information on our OCHS website to help you contact her directly, and provided over on this side is her phone number. Attendance does matter, so we'll be checking attendance through multiple different opportunities, whether it's the synchronous session, teachers will be taking attendance through Zoom. There may be an attendance question posted daily in all classes so that students can check in. And there also will be opportunities to submit homework or materials that may be counted toward attendance as well. And then on Wednesdays, there will be office hours for teachers between 1:30 and 3, and those office hours are all posted in the teacher's Google Classroom. We do have our own website, and so this is really important to know that if you're trying to figure out what's happening with your student and where are they supposed to be, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, we've added a schedule section underneath the calendar area for you to be able to access some amazing information that I'll show you in a moment. If your student is not sure where to log in and find the Google Classroom or their Gmail account, they can click on our website and then click on Students, which will give them a link to the web links, which is the student class link. And you'll see that they'll have to sign in with their first name, middle initial, last name, and then they'll use their code to be able, their password, to be able to sign in. That will give them the platform to which they can access all of their Google Classrooms as well as their Gmail. So what does the schedule section look like? This new section on our website has a lot of information. So when you get to schedules, you'll click on it and up will come your schedule. And then there's this section at the bottom of the screen called Click Document Below for exact class time by teacher. One of the easiest ways for you to find what time your student should be in class, you'd click on this schedule and up would come a list of your teachers. To zoom in on that, if we were looking at Ms. Black's class, her students for period 1 on Mondays and Thursdays would meet for class at 10:30 and end at 11:15. When they're done with their synchronous class, they'll be able to explore their asynchronous work, which is found in the Google Classroom. Many of you have experienced a lot of this over the week, and many of you have not. So if you haven't had a moment to talk with your students about their classwork, have them sit down with you and work through the Google Classroom with you, showing you where they find their links to Zoom, where they find their classwork, where they can find contact information for their teacher, and much, much more. And I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Erickson, who will talk to us about communication and conferencing.
Thank you, Christine. So the conferences that we are having in about 2 to 3 weeks, we're going there, they're on Wednesday, October 14th and Wednesday, October 21st from 4 to 7:30. And we're working on currently adapting the model so that it can be the most flexible for the virtual format. And there will be, in the past, when we were in person, we would have arena type scheduling that was arena type conferences in our gym. And so we'll be working on making it easy so that you can contact teachers. And there are a number of formats that we're working with, but expect to hear some information from the school as we reach out to not only tell you the format, but the possibility of making appointments with teachers and to kind of really get our fall going with a round of conferences. We also wanted to make sure tonight that you knew that communicating with teachers and our communication with you is really critical to the success of yours and our students. And I know that Dr. Davis will be talking a little bit about communication a little later this evening. But the idea that that we are using email for communication, right now there has been a really big uptick in the number of emails just in general, and so kind of all around. And we wanted to make sure that you knew that number one, emailing your teacher is a great way to make contact and to sort out if there is any confusion, and to make sure that that we can help support your student as quick and easy as possible. We also will have communication in the form of ninth grade family newsletter. We've sent out 2, I believe, Christine, so far 2.
Correct.
And that has been very helpful to give you some support and some resources, and to really kind of help keep that communication in an easy pattern that will so that you can be up to date on the news. And we're expecting one, I think this Friday. Would that be right?
Correct.
Awesome. And so we're very thankful that over the last 7 school days, we've had some amazing successes, and we've gotten a lot of kids into Zoom, and with teachers are really glad to be with our students, and the idea that we're making this school go, and but communication is really important. So don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to reach out to a teacher. Don't hesitate to ask a question, and to really start and keep the communication going. And so that part is just kind of paramount to this new virtual learning that we're in. So I think we're ready for the next slide, Christine.
Sure. And I just want to also share that we also have a school newsletter that is sent out by Principal Wilhelm, and it gives a plethora of information for the overall information of the school itself. So if you haven't received it yet, it's coming soon, and that newsletter will parallel with the 9th grade. So the 9th grade newsletter is specific for 9th grade information, and we'll also have a link to the larger OCHS newsletter that'll come out as well. We're trying to have that gentle balance of how much is too much and how much is not enough. So bear with us as we figure out exactly what that balance is. But we're hoping these newsletters will bring you smiles and joy and connection to our community. All right, so student supports. Last time we met, we talked about student supports and when they would be starting. So we'll be starting student supports on October 6th, so next Tuesday. We'll begin what's called Lunch Academy. Our National Honor Society students, our upper leveled students in 11th and 12th grade, some 10th graders as well, will be supporting these lunch academies. These lunch academies will give your student an opportunity to maybe talk about a subject matter that they're not clear on, work with their peers to be able to accomplish tasks. They can come in as a group if they need a space to be able to work together. We have breakout rooms and students that are willing to host those breakout rooms. So if a group of students need to meet to talk in a safe space, that's going to be a great place for them. We also have After School Academy that will be starting on Wednesdays. This will be a virtual version of what we did on Tuesdays and Thursdays when we were in the brick and mortar environment. Students will be able to come in here for these 2 hours and be able to receive tutoring support from either National Honor Society students or advanced students that have been recommended by their teachers. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to post something in the Surveymonkey, or you can contact me directly and ask for specifics if you need more information. All of this will be going out onto the OCHS website. So if you don't remember it now, you'll be able to check in and find out exactly when all of this begins. We look forward to hosting your students so that they can be the best them. Dr. Erickson?
Yes, so this year, especially with starting out in comprehensive distance learning, we have started a new program called Family Connection Visits. And if you and your 9th grader are interested in a 15 to 20-minute conversation that's a personalized visit so we can get to know your 9th grader better, we're going to have school staff involved, teachers and administrators, and just really trying to keep connected and get connected and keep connected. We sent an invitation out with our second 9th grade family newsletter that if you're interested, you can fill out a form. You also, we are going to be calling too, so that we can connect with your 9th grader to really help them feel integrated into the school and to get to know them a little bit better. And so you should be hearing a little bit about this in the next few weeks. And we're going to try to pretty much first trimester to extend as many visits as we can. The invitation is out to the whole 9th grade class. And so if that is something that you think that might be interesting for you and also to help support your student, go ahead, and the form is in the chat. And you can also send an email too so that we can follow up. But it's one of the things we're kind of excited about, and trying to, we have a whole new generation of pioneers hit our school here. And so we want to make sure we get to know them and really help support integration into our learning community. And so you'll hear a little bit more information as we go there, but you can, the form is in the chat, and you can also put it into the Surveymonkey too, because we can harvest that for contacts too. So there you go.
Thank you, Dr. Erickson. And if there's any questions, again, please feel free to contact me, as I'll be hosting many of these meetings to meet your students and help them be successful towards graduation. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Davis. She has been in education over 30 years. She has been everything under the sun, from a principal in a brick and mortar environment to a coordinator CEO of an online school. She has more accolades than you can imagine in the online space as well as in the brick and mortar space. And she is a dear friend of mine who has just a motivation quality about her that will really inspire you to be able to support your students during this definitely unprecedented times. I am going to ask Dr. Erickson for us to figure out how to switch over to Dr. Davis. So if you'll give us 1 minute for transition time, love to be able to give Dr. Davis the floor.
All right, awesome. So while they're figuring that out, we also make sure if you have a question to go ahead and put it in the Surveymonkey link that's in the chat. And that way we can, and that could be for information that was covered before our guest, and then also questions for Dr. Davis. So there you go. Take it away.
So the floor is mine. First of all, Dr. Baldwin and Dr. Erickson, thank you so much for having me this evening. As I work with schools around the country during this time, it's always interesting because the issues seem to be very similar from state to state, city to city. So what I want to really focus in on today is motivating your online learner. But I'm going to force you to do a little bit of participation, because I'm interested in where are we now? This is always a really great place to start. So the question that I've asked is, in one word, how do you think your child would describe their feelings these days? And the way you're going to do this is grab your cell phone And you're going to send a message to 37607. And then you're going to text Elizabeth DAV 885. That will allow you to join Poll Everywhere under my account. And then your next message will be that one word that describes or that tells me how your child would describe their feelings these days. And let's see where we are as a community. And those directions are at the top of this slide. So
Dr. Davis, you're saying that the phone number we're texting to is 37607.
that's
and
correct.
our first text of Elizabeth Dave 885 and hit send, and then the word.
And then you will see, you'll see that you have joined that meeting, which is my meeting, and then just the single word. Oh, and my screen is beginning to populate, so that's great. I see words coming up.
Should we see the words yet?
Nope, you won't see them just yet because I didn't want you to feed off of each other. So what I wanted to see was what you were thinking, and then I'm going to show that, that word cloud here in just a minute. It's always fascinating. I have used this question now several times, and it's fascinating and interesting to see what each group comes up with. And what you're seeing right now is the live screen. And the larger the word is, the more often it was typed in. So I think this is a real picture into what's happening in our communities. Your community is no different than so many others that I have spoken with this fall. So yes, our children are feeling incredibly isolated. They are disappointed. I am the mother of a high school senior this year. Believe me, I know what that disappointment looks like. They feel depressed, they're nervous, they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed. I see of all the words on the screen, one positive word. That word is resilient. And if we want to build something into our children, and if COVID-19 and the state of our nation is going to build something positive into our children, it may well be resilient. So congratulations to that person who has a child who would describe themselves as being resilient. So I always think it's fascinating to go through that little exercise without sharing what's happening on the screen. So moving on, let me grab this. Where we are today is that our children are feeling isolated, alone, confused, angry, depressed, and passive. This is not a pretty picture of America's young people right now. And we see this in our interactions. My bright, happy, fun kids, and I will share with you, I'm the mom of 6. My oldest child is 32 and my youngest is 15, a high school sophomore. I have 2 high schoolers this year. This is a tough time to be a high school student. It's a tough time because they don't really have the psychological coping mechanisms that we adults have. And there is just a tremendous amount of negative emotion happening in their world. We can't talk about motivating kids until we understand what kids need. And I always call this Maslow before Bloom's. And so the educators in the room are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Maslow was basically a psychologist, and he talked about what human beings needed in order to be successful, self-actualized, positive human beings. And you'll notice at the very bottom of this pyramid, the first hierarchy of need is safety. The second one is belonging. And as we move up, you know, that self-esteem, that confidence is higher up on that. And finally, self-actualization, that ability to accept the facts, to have a moral base, to be creative and spontaneous, to be able to problem solve in a critical way. Maslow really focused in on this. We're going to have a really hard time talking about motivating our children when they don't feel safe and secure. And when you go back to the word cloud that you built and you see words like unmotivated, depressed, frustrated, these are not kids who feel safe in their world anymore. And to be really honest, as an adult, I have to say, there are times when I don't feel really safe in the world. This is not an irrational set of emotions that our young people are feeling. So let's move a little bit through Maslow and talk about ways to get our kids, you know, kind of centered in that place of security and safety. The number one thing is our children have to feel secure. And so we need to think about strategies. And I've come up with a few. I did some work with another group where we really brainstormed how we can create that sense of security for our kids, because right now the world doesn't seem very secure. And in fact, 2020, how many memes have you seen about 2020? My latest favorite one is a meme that says, you know, I was really kind of looking forward to the weather cooling down and the happiness of the winter season and all of the holidays associated with it. But it's 2020, and I'm 100% sure that we're going to have flammable snow this year. Now, that's funny, but the bottom line is 2020 has been a really, really hard year. It's hard for everybody. So I have a few suggestions for you. The first is to minimize conversations about negative situations your child has no control over. And in a number of households, this negative conversation has surrounded finances. And children just simply are not equipped to understand the intricacies of maintaining a household. And if there are deep, real conversations happening about how much money's in the bank, or you know, do we need to go to the food bank, or are we going to have enough money to pay for lessons, or any of the other things that you may be worried about, your child has no control over that. And that can be a destabilizing conversation for a student to overhear. The second thing, be practical about health risks. I think when COVID happened and we were all watching on the news and looking at ICUs and seeing our first responders and our frontline healthcare workers, that was a really scary experience for us. But in my world, I really try to, as a parent, say to my kids, yes, this is kind of a scary virus, and we don't have a lot of understanding about how it works just yet. But as individuals, we have some control here. We can wash our hands frequently. We can limit our contact with people who appear to be sick. We can do those things in a practical, reasonable, rational way. This was about the time that we turned off the nightly news, because it's not the nightly news anymore. It's a 24-hour news cycle that all of us are bombarded by, but that really negatively affects our children. Television, news media, and social media were areas of very high anxiety for many students. And I would suggest that you establish boundaries for inputs. I no longer watch more than a half an hour of news every day. I do not need to be bombarded hourly by the negative information that's coming onto the news. I need the news in order to operate effectively as an adult in this world. I do not need it 24 hours a day. So I would suggest that you really consider talking to your students about the negativity that comes through all kinds of media and how to mitigate and build boundaries around that. The next thing, convey hope for the future. These are our young people. We want them to be positive. We want them to look forward to a rich life full of wonderful relationships and opportunities. As my high school senior is, looking forward to college, we're really framing this around the possibilities for the rest of her life and the places she could go and the things she could do. And that conveys a hope that the future is good. We're going to move forward. We're going to do that in a positive way. So we really emphasize in my household those positive emotions. I also really, if there was one thing I would impress, it would be that all of us, adults, students, little kids, we all need to develop that growth mindset. Our kids are very easily defaulting right now to the negative. I can't do it. I don't like it. I'm frustrated. Mom, I just don't want to get out of bed. I'm overwhelmed. I can't go to school. I'm too anxious. When a student says, I can't do this, I always say to them, well, you've missed a word. You can't do this yet. Yet is a magic word. Yet says there's something left in the future that's going to be great for me. Yet says there's more to come and it's important. So I encourage all students, all families, all adults to really switch that mode, not from the negative, but to what will happen in the future. Your children are all learning every single day. And what they really need to learn is that they're going to be learning for every single day of the rest of their life. And I hope that for them, because this is what makes our lives rich and fulfilled and just beyond all imagination, what we could be and what we could dream for ourselves. Then the last thing is a very serious one. When your child's emotions seem out of control, irrational, or self-destructive, it's time to stop thinking that that's a problem that you can solve by yourself. I highly recommend that you seek out professional help, that you work through the counseling department at your school to find that professional help to guide your child through times when it's not just being disappointed, but it's being so depressed they can't get out of bed. When it's not just being lonely, but feeling so isolated they don't fit in anywhere anymore. It's not feeling lost. It's feeling like they're non-existent. Those are real emotions for some adolescents, and I cannot stress how important it is for you to get that professional help, because you don't want to end up in a situation with a child who's in crisis without tools and resources that you can use to help that child through that. So now I'm going to have you do the same thing that we just did, but I'm going to have you do it, and I'm going to have you think about, and I have to set this up for us, so let me make sure I've got it. I apologize. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to change the question a little bit. And I'm going to ask you in one word, and you will follow exactly the same directions. You're all logged in. But I'm going to ask you in one word, what is your hope for your child's emotional state today? If you could choose a word to describe what you would really love to see your child be emotionally, what would that look like for you? And you're going to see such a difference when you see these words come up on the screen.
Will you repeat the question one more time?
The question is, in one word, what is your hope for your child's emotional state today? And I love these that I see coming up on the screen. So I'm so excited that I'm going to just share them as quickly as I can. Look at that screen. This is what parents want for their children, and it actually is what your children want for themselves. So this is why Maslow is so important, because at the end of the day, and now I'm going to put my mom hat on, as a mom, when somebody said, "What is your greatest wish for your children?" Actually, at the end of the day, I didn't wish that they all had PhDs, although I'm not adverse to PhDs, obviously. I didn't wish that they all had high-paying jobs. I didn't wish any of that. What I wished for my kids is that they were happy and could form a positive human adult relationship. That was my personal goal for my kids. And so when you start thinking about what your hopes are for your children, you're not likely to come up with a goal that says, oh, I want them to make $300,000 a year. It's a great goal, but is that really what you want for your child? Unless, of course, your child is your retirement plan, in which case that may be a great goal for your child. So I'm hoping that you all have a goal for your child, that they will grow up and be confident and motivated and hopeful and secure and excited and ambitious and, proud of themselves. I think those are all great words for what we want for our children to be. So very excited to see those up on the screen, because it really is a contrast, what we want for our kids and what they are currently living in, and how to transform those negative emotions that many of our children are feeling to the positive emotions for what our hopes, our desires are for our kids as they get older. So moving on. Now we move to blooms. Let's say that we've really said to our kids, okay, we're gonna create this positive environment. We want you to feel good about who you are. We want you to be confident. We want you to do those things. Blooms are what the educators in the room is looking at. So Bloom's taxonomy is basically a hierarchy of learning. So at the bottom, you see remember. Remember is one of the easiest and lowest cognitive processes that students will engage in. This hierarchy goes all the way up to creation, which is much more complex, requires critical thinking, requires imagination. That is at the top of this hierarchy. We can't really do anything about blooms until we've got Maslow straightened out. So we've talked a little bit about Maslow. Now let's attend to blooms. The first thing that you want to do in a distance learning situation, any real learning situation, is create an environment that's conducive to learning. So I know that there are probably days, especially now that many of us are working from home, that the picture on the far left of your screen seems to be exactly the mode of operation in your household. A little chaotic, kids hanging from the chandeliers, no schoolwork getting done. It just seems like there's too much going on and nothing is really happening. And then there's this continuum across the screen. So, and I know that probably Dr. Baldwin is thinking that the Davis children all are this model child on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm going to disappoint her and say that the Davis children operate in an environment that looks very much like the middle of the screen. A conducive learning environment is different from child to child. And it's different from household to household, because what's happened in this move into digital learning is school has also invaded your household. And households weren't really set up to be schools, and schools weren't really set up to be households. So now we have kind of this different way of working both and living in our homes. So while I think that the student on the right hand of the screen probably has an ideal setup for learning, I'm not necessarily adverse to what the student in the middle of the screen has, because I see lots of learning materials, things that can be used. They're handy, they're right there. It's not going to win the Good Housekeeping Award, but it's also a place where kids probably feel comfortable, and it's a place where kids probably feel safe. One of the things I loved about when I came in the room and Dr. Baldwin started talking about scheduling, every single bit of research that is available that has been applied to children learning says that children flourish when they can have a clear expectation and predict what is going to happen next. Planning is the key. Scheduling is the key. It is not a good idea for teenagers to be sleeping until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And what I love about what's happening at your particular school is that schedule is very clear. It's very obvious to students where they need to be, what they're going to be doing when they get there, and how to plan moving ahead. So while I put these things here, often what happens in unstructured online learning is that students get to within about 10 days of the deadline and they start powering through classes and learning nothing. They're simply checking the box and hoping that they get a passing grade. This is not great online learning, and we don't want to approach it that way. And I am thrilled to see that your school actually has created a routine that is predictable for students to work around. So this is a huge part. You can't attend to Bloom's, you can't attend to the learning unless you have a plan for it. So this makes me feel very solid about what your school is doing. The other thing, and this also came up, as parents now with students working in a distance learning situation, it is more vital now than it ever was before for you to become a partner with the school and to link arms with the school. Here's what typically happens. When our children are in elementary school, we are all room moms, we're in and out of the school, we're volunteering, we're laminating. We know what's happening in that school because we're in there as a part of it. But as our children get a little larger and they become what I refer to as no longer fun-sized, but they're full-sized and they look like adults, we kind of pull back from the whole school thing as parents. We're not so present anymore in the life of the school. And as a result, we no longer really have our fingertips on the pulse of what's happening at the school. So 3 things that you can do. 1, check your emails. And once your child is in distance learning, I would say check your emails frequently. Once a day is probably not enough because lots of information comes to you through emails. So let's say a major system crashes, and I hope I'm Dr. Baldwin and Dr. Erickson, I hope I don't jinx anything. But if the system crashes, you may be notified about that through an email. And you won't have to call the school and say, there's something horribly wrong because my kid can no longer get into his English class. You will already have known that because you would have read the email that made that announcement for you. The other thing that you need to do that I do, and I do have, both of my children are involved in hybrid blended type programs this year, is you need to check on what they're doing. Because those of us who have worked in an online environment for a long time, we often hear parents say, well, I know my kid did that assignment. He's online all day long. And I can be online all day long too. My favorite thing to do is hang out on Pinterest and get new bread recipes. Your kid's favorite thing to do online is going to be gaming. It's going to be social media. It's going to be all of those things. Kids can be online and look very industrious behind their screens, when in fact they're not accomplishing anything that has anything to do with learning. So check up on your kids. You know, trust but verify. That's what I say in my household. My kids don't like it, but they know that their parents care that they are making progress. And the other thing I think is so important is learn the systems. So Dr. Baldwin took you all through the system of how to know where your kid should be at any given time during the day. That's a system you should be familiar with, and you should understand the tools that you have within those systems, because that's going to make you a more effective partner with the school as time moves on. So this is my favorite slide, carrots, not sticks. The minute you say to an adolescent, this is mandatory, the adolescent's just internal, almost automatic response is, how are you going to make me? I'm not a fan of sticks for adolescents. I don't think they work, and I think what they do is create an adversarial relationship between the adolescent, the parent, and the teacher and the school. What I would really, really encourage you to do, keeping in mind that Maslow that we talked about, encourage growth mindsets. Look at how much you accomplished today. I wonder how far you can get tomorrow. Recognize that school is sometimes hard, validate it. Say, wow, this is really tough. You know, I mean, I will tell you, I'm not so good at Algebra 2 anymore. I am really not good at pre-calc, it turns out. So I can look at my child and say, goodness, you must be really capable to manage this material, because I would have to go back and reteach that to myself. Good for you. Honor the complexity of learning. Whether we think about it or not, really openly, whether we articulate that, learning is tough business. Anybody who's done any research into neuroscience, how the brain works, learning is tough. And you need to acknowledge that difficulty for some of your students and give them options. So here is where I would say, I wonder if talking with some friends about this assignment would help you. So honor that. Let your kids know that they are engaged in hard work. Help them find their own motivation. And one of the places where we have failed as schools is we do not assist students in setting goals. It is absolutely essential for students to have a goal. This is, among just a handful of others, a research-based, high-impact teaching strategy. So when I walk into a school where students have a goal, they're going to learn something, they're going to accomplish something, they're going to create something within a time period. This speaks volumes to me about the quality of the school. Every student in your school should have a set of goals, and you at home can help support those goals. If the school doesn't have a set of goals, then I recommend that you set them with your child. What do you think we can accomplish this week? Let's see what our goal is. My 15-year-old, believe it or not, is a budding mechanic, and her future brother-in-law owns a mechanic shop. Her goal is to have her entire weekly work done by Thursday at 2 o'clock, because on Friday, she wants to be down at his shop. That's a great goal for a 15-year-old. It's short term, it's very easy to measure. She knows what she wants to do, and she is in charge of that goal. She has complete power over whether or not she achieves that goal or not. So it's a wonderful goal. Remember, your goal is to help your child want to learn. I will guarantee you there is no way that you can make a child learn. You do not have that power. I wish we all had that power. I wish actually from time to time that my children came supplied with a USB port, and I could just plug in the drive and I could just upload it right into the kid. Kids have to want to learn it. And you can threaten, you can cajole, you can do all of that, but at the end of the day, you cannot make a child learn. Then the last thing I would say is pay attention to Maslow. If you are having a bad day, if your home is stressed out, if your child is anxious, afraid, worried, their ability to learn anything is seriously limited. The brain doesn't work that way. In order for a child to learn, the brain has to be relaxed. It has to feel safe. You can't have a whole lot of stress hormones racing through the body. You want your kids to be in a place where they feel like this is a great place to be, and I'm happy and I'm safe, and now I can learn. Finally, I think this is the most important thing, and I know that Dr. Baldwin really works on this. Kids need a learning network. And it can't always be the teacher. In fact, it shouldn't always be the teacher. It can be you, the parent. It can be their peers, which is what those National Honor Society students are doing with those lunch academies and those after-school academies. Learning from a peer sometimes is a very safe place to learn. They can learn from knowledgeable others or tutors, but they also can learn from virtual resources. And I think this is where we sometimes sell our kids short a little bit. So I'll tell you a story about this. I have an electronic door lock on my front door. And every so often, I need to change that code on that door lock. But you know, I never can find the paperwork that gives me the direction for that. And I was digging through drawers and trying to figure out, you know, how I was gonna do this, what the process was. It's very complicated. You've got to click these 3 numbers and then hit the red button. And we all have things like that in our house, right? My 15-year-old looked at me and she goes, you know what? You're not very good at this. She said, let me just go on YouTube and I'll get you the directions for this. Again, humorous story, but so true. There are millions of virtual resources that can assist your child. They might be videos on YouTube, they might be a podcast, they might be an audible book, lots of things out there, and encourage students to use these digital tools because they're incredibly powerful. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone for being here. I hope that I inspired you, gave you some tools, some tips and tricks of the trade. But my portion here is over, and I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you ever so much, Dr. Davis, for providing that very, very in-depth view that will give many of our parents some great tools to be able to take home, you know, at their home, or sorry, they'll be able to take to their students and be able to really support them in a super positive way. And I think Dr. Erickson, I'm going to share the screen again and focus on our question and answer session, which I believe may have been posted in Surveymonkey. So I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah, so we had a few questions, a little bit about the schedule. And thank you, Dr. Davis, for giving us a little inspiration on motivating and growth mindset for sure. Yeah, my children are all in their 20s and early 30s, but it's just yeah, it's the biggest challenge right now for parenting. And so I'm thankful for the words of support that you gave. There were 2 questions in the Surveymonkey about schedules, and why does the schedule, number 1, have a range of times for the periods, the first simpler schedule that Dr. Baldwin shared. And then why do kids have, why are there different times for classes? And the reason that was done is because we have families with multiple students in the home that are in high school, and by having a range, and by so you see that there's 90-minute ranges for each period, but then 2 slides forward when it shows the time that you busted out. And so then teachers chose within that 90 minutes a 45-minute period, and it will be persistent and the same for that class for the whole trimester. And so we have recommended that one of the things that families can do is write out their child's schedule and the time, such as that 10:30 to 11:15 is the period for looks like probably a first period class. And so then you will know when your student is in class. And we have some student planners that we have had posted in the mentor team classrooms. And so if you asked your student to in the mentor team Google Classroom, we have some planners that kind of assist with that. And because anyone in here who has more than 1 child knows exactly how many Zooms you can host at once. It tops out at about 2, sometimes 3, but that way there is a little bit of variability within the schedule so that teachers and students will be able to find themselves in a situation that their internet will be stable, and they can also it will be persistent throughout the whole trimester. So once you get the times down, then you can help support your student. And we had another question about wondering if the student can't get into Zoom, what should they do? And that is a common, it can happen. And so we are recommending, just like Dr. Davis said, is email that teacher. It is the quickest way for your student or you to reach out to the teacher and just say, we had a hard time getting in, or we can't find the link. It is, we also, for every live session that happens, a teacher will post either the slide deck. Sometimes they will post a recording, but not every time, because as you well know, if you're the whole 45 minutes, it might have been question and answer, it might have been discussion, and there are different ways. There could be an audio file, but you have your student look into the Google Classroom for that day, and they can see what work might have been missed. And also, really important and part of that attendance sequence is that if your student is marked absent, do not stress. You can email the teacher, but it is not, right now in distance learning, absences per se are not in the same realm as when we are in brick and mortar. And we use the absences just so that we can make sure to help support students who need more support showing up, and that way we can kind of really help support. So that kind of wraps up most of the questions. There's a couple questions that we will email direct, but we are super thankful for everyone coming out tonight. And Dr. Baldwin, I think there's one more slide. Yes.
We have another family night, night 3, planned for you on October 28th at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about accessing student supports, as well as what you can do if your student is disconnected. We're going to constantly come back to that theme of working with what do we do to support our students. We're also going to be discussing progress reports that will be coming out to you via email. Dr. Erickson, is there anything that we want to touch on real quick about the progress reports that will be coming out in week 3?
Yeah, so we will have, I think it is October 7th, which is basically week 3, even though it's in the middle of the week. And we, at 2-week intervals starting there, we'll have teachers will generate synergy progress grades out of their grade books, so that you can have an update and know how your student is doing. And that, I think that the research does suggest that the more data we have on our students as parents or as teachers too, so that we know how they're doing and where they need support, that's part of the process. So you should be expecting that coming home in probably a week. Yes. So yeah, that's coming.
And here, my contact information is available on the website as well as here. And many of your students have seen me in the help desk space that is often around 12 to 1 p.m. in the Zoom link that's posted out in their Google Classrooms. And they're more than welcome to reach out at any time for any sort of support. Again, I want to thank Dr. Davis for extending her time tonight to us and allowing us to have an opportunity to hear from a different source of information that connects us globally to other parents that are out there stressing with us and worrying with us and trying to find ways to make it more positive and engaging for our students. So I send you a warm thank you from OCHS for all of your time and dedication today. So thank you. And I appreciate all of our families who came out this evening. If there's anything that we can do for you, please make sure you contact us, and we'll make sure that we respond in a way that supports you. Thank you for this evening.
Thank you.